Kickoff for the 2024 season is rapidly approaching. What are the three biggest what-ifs for Florida football in the 2024 season? Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. Guys, go to SeatGeek.com. Use promo code SECU at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. Again, guys, that's our friends at SeatGeek. Promo code SECU to get $20 off today. A pivotal year 3 for Billy Napier is just around the corner. And as we all know by now, he is greeted with a murderer's row schedule to take on. But, with that being said, a lot of opportunity, and this is a huge year where Billy Napier can go out there, quiet all the naysayers, and prove he's the right man for the job in Gainesville. So what are the three biggest what-ifs for Florida football this season? Hypothetical situations that, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this goes this direction or that direction? Three things that, depending on what happens, could absolutely shape what Florida football season looks like in 2024. And let's just call it for what it is, could shape the future of the Billy Napier era in Gainesville. So, guys, let's get it going. My first biggest what if for the Florida Gators in the 2024 season: what if the offensive line takes a major step forward? Guys, they were not good last year. The offensive line was abysmal. It was atrocious. It was a miracle that Graham Mertz was able to have the type of season he was a season ago with that offensive line and its inconsistencies. I should say inconsistency because top-end talent, it is there. But the inconsistencies of that group on a week-in, week-out basis, it just was not good enough in the SEC to thrive and have the type of year that Gator fans want, certainly. And I was looking at the offense, and there's a number of different directions you can go here. But if the offensive line doesn't click, none of it will click. But if it does, and you've added some transfers, you've added some other guys that should be able to plug and play and make this group much better. If the offensive line comes together, guys, you know you got the trigger man in Graham Mertz, who proved me wrong, proved many others wrong. I was not high on Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz ended up being a top 5 SEC quarterback when it was all said and done. One of the best passers in college football. I know some will attack him for the dink and dunk thing, but he was efficient with the football. You're going to really fault a guy for that? So he was efficient with the football. You got Graham Mertz, the right trigger man. Then you look at the weapons. Hey, Eugene Wilson, that's a name not enough people are talking about. I think he could explode and be one of the top playmakers in the SEC. How about Arliss Boardingham at the tight end? Love Boardingham at the tight end. He's your prototypical guy you want there at that position. He can serve and run blocking, but he can also catch the football, make some big plays. He did just that near the end of last season. Montrell Johnson at the running back position. I know you lost he who shall not be named. I will say that to the arch rival, but Montrell Johnson, one of the best in the SEC. He has not been a number one necessarily, but I think Montrell Johnson has all the makings that he could put together a really nice season. Then you look at some of the other weapons that Florida added. Khalil Jackson, Kamire DK, I believe is how you say his name. Like, you've got weapons. That's the bottom line. You've got weapons. Florida's offense can be really, really, really potent in the 2024 season. But the offensive line has to click. That's the number one thing. The offensive line's got to click. If the offensive line comes together, you've got the weapons all around you at running back, at the receiver position, at tight end. And most importantly, you have the right trigger man in Graham Mertz. But the big uglies have got to hold up their end of the bargain. Guys, my second biggest what if for the Florida Gators this season, and the theme that I hope gets corrected, but the theme of the first 2 years of the Billy Napier era, one of them at least, has been Florida shooting themselves in the foot. Mental mistakes, and I've gone on record and said it, Florida being a stupid football team. That's what they've been the first 2 years. And Billy Napier, based off what he said, it does sound like they're getting closer to that being no more, because he says, listen, this is the first time that I've been here that things are running smoothly and operating smoothly. We're not having to install certain things or do certain things. And so maybe that leads to Florida being a smarter football team. But do I really have to go through the laundry list of things that has happened under Billy Napier? 2 guys wearing the same number jersey, blunder after blunder after blunder on special teams, stupid penalties. Florida has been a stupid football team the first 2 years of Billy Napier. And as they say, guys, at some point, you show me who you are. It's up to me whether I believe you or not. And you want to keep believing you're something else, but maybe that's just who you are. Maybe that's your identity. So what if the mental mistakes continue? And I think that's one of those things that if they do, not all records are built equally. We know that. That reigns true in college football. So 5-7 versus 6-6 versus 7-5. Not all 7-5s are built the same. Not all 6-6s are built the same. So if you go 6-6 and you're Billy Napier and your team is hanging tough and those 6 losses were really close and you're doing things the right way, you're just a couple pieces away, well, that's one thing. But if you go 5-7 or 6-6 and you're shooting yourself in the foot and you can see, hey, this team has talent. They're good enough to get to a bowl game. They were good enough to win this game and that game and that game, but they don't do the little things right. They don't execute the fundamentals. They're a stupid football team. They are, what they've been under Billy Napier. So what if those mistakes continue? What is that going to mean for the season? I think we know what it's probably going to mean with that schedule. And what does it mean, probably most importantly, for Billy Napier? Will he be able to survive it? Guys, my third and final biggest what if for the Florida Gators this season. And this one I think you guys will probably find interesting. I think you'll probably find this interesting. Because you look at this schedule, everybody wants to talk about the schedule. And it makes sense why. It's not just the most difficult schedule in college ball this year. It might be the most difficult schedule in college ball history, or at least one of them. I mean, it is a ridiculous schedule, murderer's row. I don't know, maybe Kirby Smart himself put this thing together, especially the month of November, right? You look at all throughout the schedule. You open up with Miami. You got Texas A&M. You've got UCF in the non-conference, Florida State in the non-conference. Samford's the only kick-in win, really, it feels like. You got the Georgia Bulldogs. You got LSU. You got Ole Miss. I mean, you got Texas, one after another, after another, after another. And I feel like people, though, are looking, got Tennessee, but people are looking at this schedule. Right now, this schedule feels ridiculous. It is. But, guys, what if the schedule turns out to be not as daunting as we first thought? Hang in there with me now. What if the schedule turns out to not be as tough as we first thought? Because here's what happens. We get into the season, some teams are going to perform up to the expectation that we expect. Some teams are going to overachieve, and some teams are going to underachieve. So what's the likelihood that every team on Florida's schedule lives up to all their massive preseason hype? That every team on Florida's schedule is as good as we think they're going to be? Maybe they will be. Maybe they will be, and this schedule will prove, it will show its teeth, and it will prove why it was the most difficult schedule, why we ranked it that way. What if that doesn't happen, though? What if there's a couple games that all of a sudden, wow, LSU looks a little more winnable now. Wow, Ole Miss looks more winnable now. Well, Tennessee, maybe they're not clicking like we thought they would. Hey, Texas A&M, there's a lot more to build on in year one of Mike Elko than we first gave credit. Maybe they're not as good as we thought. Maybe those games against UCF, Miami, maybe they're not as daunting as we thought. Maybe Florida State, with all the guys they lost, maybe they're not quite as good, even though the game's in Tallahassee. I'm just saying that it probably doesn't work out that way for every one of those teams, but maybe a couple. What if? Just what if? What if Texas isn't as good in year one of the SEC as we thought they would be? But what if that transition to the SEC is more daunting than we're giving it credit for? What if? What if the schedule is a little bit more manageable and Florida's able, we get to the month of November, we say, this doesn't look like it once did. So, guys, my 3 biggest what ifs for the Florida Gators this season in year 3 of Billy Napier. Number 1, what if the offensive line takes a major step forward? Number 2, what if mental mistakes continue? And number 3, what if the schedule turns out to not be as daunting as we first thought? Guys, that's going to do it all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.